Welcome to this lesson on pronouns with me, Elena. Let's go ahead and get started by asking an important question. What are pronouns? Well, there are a couple of things that we ought to know about pronouns. First, they are words that take the place of nouns, hence the name pronoun. They help to make sentences more interesting. Rather than repeating the same noun over and over, we can use new words to substitute for that noun in order to just make the sentence a little bit more varied and interesting to read. One thing that we can focus on in this lesson that will be helpful is pronoun case. That's how pronouns change depending upon whether they are the subjects or objects of a sentence. Let's do a quick review though on what subjects and objects are. Here, let's break it down. A subject is the thing in the sentence taking the action. So an example would be the word Jake in this sentence. Jake opened the door. Jake is the one taking the action, so Jake is the subject of this sentence. What about an object? It's the thing in the sentence receiving the action. The door is the object in this sentence. The door was opened by Jake. Jake is the one who is taking the action. The door is the thing receiving that action. So, subjects take action, objects receive action. Nouns stay the same whether they are the subject or object of sentences. This is important because pronouns are actually quite different. But take a look at this example of a noun. In this sentence, the bus stop is right outside of my apartment. Bus stop is the subject because it's the focus of the sentence. But in this sentence, bus stop is the object of the sentence. My apartment is directly next to a bus stop. Now here, the bus stop is just the object of any action taking place, but it stays exactly the same. We say bus stop in both cases. But that's not the same for pronouns. Nouns might stay the same, but pronouns change depending upon whether they are the subject or the object of a sentence. Take a look. He decided to do his homework at the library. In this sentence, the pronoun he is the subject of the sentence. He is the one making the decision. But in this sentence, the decision to do homework at the library was made by him. We now have a different form of the pronoun. Him is the object, right? The decision was made by him. That's at the end of our sentence now. It's in the object place. And it changes. Obviously, he and him are different pronouns. So our pronouns are going to change depending upon whether or not they are subjects or objects. Now, why does this matter? It matters because we need to know what pronoun to use in what situation, depending upon whether the pronoun is the subject or object of a sentence. That's going to change the case that we use. Let's see if we can apply this to some examples together. So, what we want to do is figure out, is this pronoun a subject or is it an object? How about this sentence? I love dogs. Well, I is the one taking an action, so I is the subject. Dogs love me. Who's taking the action here? The dogs, right? So dogs is the subject and the pronoun me is an object. What about this one? We went to every coffee shop. We is taking an action, so we is the subject. Every coffee shop was visited by us. Well, here, us is an object because it is on the receiving end of the action. They want to go to the store. Well, they are taking the action, so they're the subject. The store will be visited by them. Again, in this case, them is the object and the pronoun changes. You should see this movie. You's taking the action, you's the subject. This movie should be seen by you. Well, this is interesting. In this case, the subject and the object are the same, even though this is a pronoun. Well, that does happen, but only with this pronoun you and also with the pronoun it. Those two pronouns will stay the same regardless of whether or not they are a subject or an object. So keep that in mind. But all of these other pronouns, they're going to change depending upon whether they're the subject or the object of a sentence. Okay, so now that we've gone a little bit over some important facets of pronoun grammar that are just helpful to know, here's our sample problem, and here's our potential answers. Let's see if we're dealing with a subject or an object. All right, if Emma needs to stop at the store, she can ride with I or she can ride with me. Well, are we dealing with a subject or an object? I or me isn't taking any action in this sentence. Rather, I or me would be the recipient of an action, being able to take a ride with someone. That means we're looking for the object case. I is the subject case, so we wouldn't use that. Rather, we would say she can ride with me. Let's go ahead and take a look at another problem together. Here's our sentence. I would rather spend time with she or with her. Well, in this case, are we looking at a subject or an object? Well, I is the one taking the action in the sentence, right? I would rather spend time with she or with her. If this is the subject of the sentence, that means we are looking for an object. She is in subject case. That doesn't work. Her is object case. I would rather spend time with her. As you get more familiar with subject and object case of pronouns, it'll become easier for you to recognize in a sentence when a subject is being used and when an object is being used. Whether you're a native or non-native English speaker, the best thing that you can do is focus on memorizing different pronouns and being very, very familiar with what case they're in, whether that's subject or whether it's object. Let's look at one more tricky pronoun case, other people. What's this problem? Sometimes we have more than one person referenced in a sentence and it's unclear what kind of pronoun we should use. And once again, the correct case doesn't always sound right. What we want to do is focus on the subject and the object. That will tell us what pronoun to use, not just what sounds right. A good tip that we can use here is to remove the other person from the sentence. If this all seems a little bit abstract right now, that's okay. We're going to apply this all to a problem together and see how this actually works. Let's take a look. The ticket collector asked my friend and something for our tickets. Would we say my friend and I or my friend and me? Well, let's think about it. Are we dealing with a subject pronoun or an object pronoun? What is the subject of the sentence? Who's taking the action? The ticket collector, right? Because they're the ones doing the asking, the verb. The ticket collector asked my friend and I or me. If this is our subject, we must be dealing with an object pronoun. I or me is the recipient of the action. So that means that we would go with the pronoun that's in object case, which in this problem would be me, not I. The other way we could solve this is to use this little tip here, put a little asterisk by it so we remember it, to remove the other person from the sentence. So we just totally cross out this other person and just say, would we say the ticket collector asked I or the ticket collector asked me? The ticket collector asked me is the way we would say this in correct English. Through both the use of knowing subject and object case pronouns and by using this helpful tip, we know which pronoun to use. Let's try another problem. The teacher told me and he or him that our papers were due. What's the subject of this sentence? Teacher. That's the one taking the action. So we need an object pronoun, right? Let's cross out the other person. Would we say the teacher told he or the teacher told him? In correct English, we would say the teacher told him that our papers were due. By understanding subject and object case and by using this tip, we will always be able to navigate through which pronoun to choose when there's more than one person mentioned in a sentence like this. Pronouns are supposed to replace the last noun previously mentioned in the sentence. Let's take an example. I ran into Evan at the movie theater today. He works there now. The last noun mentioned in this sentence is Evan. Well, technically the movie theater is mentioned too, but the movie theater's not a he, right? We just wouldn't refer to a movie theater with a gendered pronoun like that. He very clearly refers to Evan because it's the last relevant noun mentioned in the sentence. Same with this one. Jonna lent me her textbook. I need to return it to her. Again, Jonna's the only other relevant noun that's last previously mentioned in the sentence, so of course her would refer to Jonna. But what happens if the last noun mentioned is not clear? I ran into Evan and Jack at the movie theater today. He works there now. Who works there now? We're not sure because we've got two different nouns mentioned, two different guys who hypothetically we could refer to each of them with the pronoun he, but which is it? This sentence doesn't make it clear. Same with this. Jonna lent me her textbook and Amy lent me her study guide. I need to return it to her. Return what to who? Jonna or Amy, the textbook or the study guide? These pronouns are vague. They're not clearly connected because we've got so many nouns mentioned previously. Let's take a look at some problems together and try this out for ourselves. Here's our first option. Let's break it down. Since they will be out in the sun all day, somebody will need to apply sunscreen. What's our other pronoun? It's they. It's the only other pronoun in this sentence. That means we're looking for a similar pronoun, not we, that's different, not us, also because that's the wrong case. We need an we need a subject pronoun. We need a subject pronoun because this pronoun is taking an action and us is receiving an action. So we know for a lot of reasons that us isn't correct. We're left with they. I made a way too big circle around that, but you still get the point. We would put they into this sentence here because it's the same as our other pronoun. Let's look at another example. Because you did not study for this test, somebody will probably not do very well. What's our other pronoun in this sentence? You, which means we will need you. When you're being asked to keep a pronoun consistent in a sentence, you want to just identify the other pronoun and then find the one that matches that pronoun in your answer choices. All right, let's sum what we've learned up. Pronouns replace nouns in a sentence. That helps to make a sentence more interesting. Pronouns change depending on whether they are the subject, the thing taking the action, or the object, the thing receiving the action in the sentence. Don't overcorrect. Don't always go with one type of pronoun. Always focus on what's the subject and what's the object, and make sure you're using that correct case. Don't just rely on what sounds correct to you. Make sure your pronoun usage is clear. You want to make sure that it is extremely clear who is being referred to or what is being referred to whenever a pronoun is used. Add clarifying references if necessary. There may be some times where you'll need to add in extra words in order to make it super clear what is being referred to. Make sure your pronoun usage is consistent. You want to make sure that you're using the same pronouns in a sentence. So look for the other pronouns that are used in that sentence and then keep using those same pronouns. Good luck!